Allianz. Supporting all 32 counties through the Allianz Leagues.
Hello and welcome to the Throw-In Independent.ie's GAA podcast in association with Allianz. I'm Will Slattery. Delighted to be joined, as always, by Michael Verney. Michael, hello.
Getting used to these Monday mornings, Will. Happy Mondays now they're called.
I know this is probably your ideal podcast. You've managed to get Michael Duignan to come on in the second half of the show, Offaly chairman and Offaly legend as well, and it's just going to be an Offaly loving. It's just going to be all things Offaly. Yeah. You're back.
The second half was definitely going to be all Offaly. Yeah, it's great. It's just good. It's good to be back at the top table again. Not saying that we're going to be in the middle of it or up the top of it, but at least we're there again. And the signs are very positive. And even over the weekend, even Antrim putting it up to Wexford again. And even Laois with quite a good performance, having started slowly against Kilkenny, maybe a sign that a few teams outside of the traditionals maybe are starting to come back again.
Yeah, and I think it was great to have a few fans in Corrigan Park as well for Antrim Wexford. We're getting kind of closer to that, hopefully happening more widespread across the board, because the atmosphere, you can get used to not having fans there, but then it's only when you see it again, you're like, oh, this is why we like it so much. Yeah,
and even a small amount of people can make such a difference. Like even 200 or 300 now, when you're used to nobody at this stage, 200 or 300 can make an unbelievable noise. Yeah, and it's the atmosphere that we all kind of crave. There's nothing like it. And obviously, you'll have people roaring, you'll have people giving out, you'll have people booing, you'll have whatever. But it's just great to have that back. It just brings the buzz back again.
Oh, big time. And as I mentioned there, we're going to be talking to Michael Duignan in the second half of the show to reflect on Offaly's promotion to Division 1, as well as just kind of checking in about how the county's getting on, how he's finding being the chairman and kind of getting into the administrative side of the game. But first, we're delighted to be joined by Vincent Hogan to look back on the Allianz Hurling League weekend. Vincent, how are you?
Morning, Will.
Yeah, great to have you on. An interesting weekend, Vincent. I feel like pretty much after every round of hurling action so far in the league campaign, we've had big chats about the direction of the game going forward. There was the issue with the freeze, the amount of freeze being given earlier in the campaign. And today, the theme very much is the amount of scores that are now being put over the bar. Usually not really a problem. People like to see a lot of scores. But I suppose fundamentally, the game does seem to have changed a bit in the sense that you see Clare hitting 34 points over the weekend, Limerick hitting 33 with 20 wides as well. Would you be one of those people who do think it's maybe worrying is strong, but it's certainly a different game, or it appears that way anyway?
Well, I think we have to be very careful, Will, that we don't end up complaining about everything, because we've gone from there are too many frees in the game to, yes, they always scored 423 from play. So polar opposites. So what do we actually want? I think the biggest issue with hurling right now, and it really struck me on Saturday, the atmosphere in Corrigan Park with just 500 people in it, it gave hurling an edge that we've missed. And I'd be interested in Michael's view on this, because I think it's a different game without hurling. It's a soulless game without a crowd. It's a soulless game in an empty stadium. And I think there's a lot of forwards that maybe are secretly enjoying the fact there's no crowds there, because, as you know, the fundamental thing, one of the fundamentals that happens with hurling is, say, a corner forward is beaten out to the ball first time. If he's beaten out to it the second time by someone like Michael Verney, the crowd are on his back. So I haven't beaten
too many lads and too many balls, Vinnie, I can tell you that.
But a lot of forwards are probably enjoying this a lot more without the crowds in there, because there's no real pressure on them. But look, it's gone very tactical, Will. I was looking at Kilkenny in Nolan Park yesterday, and under Owen Murphy's puck, it's very interesting. The Kilkenny half forwards gathered in clusters, and it's clearly designed to take away the shape of the opposition half back line. What do? Do you go with them, or do you hold your shape? Hurling has gone very tactical. The big issue, and I think the one issue that will be addressed, is the ball. When you have guys getting the ball on their own 45 and feeling, yeah, I'll have a pop here because I can get a score, that is a problem. And I think that will be addressed, probably by the end of the year.
Yeah, Michael, I do take Vincent's point that we don't want to be coming on every week and having one problem this week. And then Shane O'Neill, to be fair to him, mentioned that. It's was it not last week we were saying there was way too many frees? Now we have a great score and it's too much scoring. He was kind of, I think, having a wry smile about the kind of the discourse. But that's what happens. From your perspective, having played in defence at inter-county level, is it a backs game now, or are those days gone? Is it really weighted now towards attackers, and is that a good thing?
No, it's probably definitely not a backs game. And there was Kilkenny cohort of former players, All Ireland winners, that weren't too happy on Twitter yesterday between Jackie Tyrrell and Eddie Brennan. And I know Richie Power wasn't happy the week before that. But Jackie is somewhat right in what he says. It's so hard to defend now. It's so hard to, if somebody runs at you, to nearly not give away a free now. And it does seem that if there's any contact, the referee does have to make a decision. Very interesting watching Limerick on Saturday night, though, particularly in the first half. Their tackling was so well disciplined. They didn't leave arms in. They didn't leave a hurl in. They didn't give Alan Kelly the chance to blow. Interesting what Vinnie said there as well about the spectators. I do agree with that. Like I was at the Tipperary final last year, and even just to have 200 people there, I think it was for Killadangan and Lochmore, and all the drama and everything that brought was unbelievable. And it does. There's a freedom for a forward. You know, you take a shot, it goes wide with no one there. You might get another shot in 5 minutes and be able to rectify it. Whereas, you know, if there's a couple of thousand people there, you take a shot. There's a load of noise almost. There's a load of cheers nearly. You're putting the ball wide. It kind of can seep into your subconscious, can erode away your confidence. Whereas now, you know, you could take a shot and you could get another shot 30 seconds later, and the pressure isn't ramped up, shall we say. That's what was so great about Corrigan Park the other day. It's like everything was ramped up. Every mistake that was made, the fans were in on top of you. Even mad, the pictures going around of even Jerry Adams in the background of some of the shots at the game. But it was and even like some of the pundits that were up north the week before, when there was 400 or 500 people in, it does feel like an awful lot more than that, and it does. The atmosphere just heightens the pressure. The pressure almost makes for more mistakes, which a lot of the time is more interesting than balls flying over and back over the bar. But yeah, I would be reluctant to just be jumping all over saying it's too high scoring. You have to remember as well, aside from the Gaelic grounds, Parnell Park and Pearse Stadium are definitely two of the smaller pitches in Ireland, and it's a county ground. You're far less likely to see that happening in Croke Park or in Thurles. But sometimes I think a lot of people won't be happy no matter what happens. As Vinnie said, 4:23 from play. If there'd been 20 points of that from frees, people would have been given out saying there was too much for frees. So I do think we're getting closer to finding that kind of happy balance between the two. And there's no way, not in a month of Sundays, will anybody go through the Waterford defence in Championship like they did in League. There was an exhibition element to some of the games as well. So I do think we'll find that happy balance, and I don't think you'll see ridiculous scores like that in Championship.
I think a point that probably should be made as well, Michael, is that this isn't a normal league. Like, we may not even get a league final. We may not get champions crowned. So it is very much a league that different teams are trying different things. And I was reading Brendan Cummins, and Brendan is very much of the view that what happened in Limerick on Saturday night, for example, Cork persisted with the short puck out, even though it was so high risk, and the high Limerick press was putting them in trouble all the time. But he's of the view that they're looking at down the line, the Munster semi-final, that game, what's going on out beyond their own 65, and that they'll be studying the video really intensely to see how they can get beyond the press. Because what was happening, Patrick Collins, I felt on Saturday night, was going short was so high risk. And then when you go long, you knew Diarmaid Burns or Declan Hannon, they're almost smiling while the ball is in the air because they're going to win it. That's not going to happen when they meet in the Munster Championship. So, maybe Cork are looking at that and saying, where can we target further out beyond our 65 to land ball? So you've got to figure in that this is a different league, and it's a lot of experimenting going on. And I agree with Michael. There's no way Waterford will be that open when they go into the Championship, but people are trying things.
Yeah, Michael, just on the Limerick game, Limerick 33 points, Cork 219. Like, how important was it for Limerick to get that win? Like, as I said, the first one of their league campaign, which no one would have predicted going into it. Is there much to read into it? Like, considering they play each other in their championship game, in not too distant future, like, is there much to read into that game at the weekend, do you think?
Yeah, no, I think there was definitely a few things gleamed by both managements and both kind of sets of players. Number one, like, aside from a couple of possessions, like, Limerick just did not allow Mark Coleman to get into the game. They just had Keane, Lynch, Roman, and I think Coleman was following him a good bit as well. But I'd say Limerick will think that they've stumbled on, a good way of totally nullifying one of Cork's most important players, probably their orchestrator at the back. They also, when they were able to press high, as Vinnie said, they were able to make them go long. Like that's what every team wants to make Cork do. You don't think maybe that they have, aside from Seamus Harnedy, a lot of really, really good, primary ball winners. So I do think that Limerick will try and keep with that press. The thing is with Cork, I think there were some like chinks of light in that game for Cork as well. When they did kind of persevere with the short game, and when they were able to kind of break that line and break that initial press, like they created 4 or 5 goal scoring chances. Got to Richie English made a last gasp save for a goal. There was a couple of other good chances as well. I think from a Cork point of view, they will think, yeah, fair enough, we were beaten by the reigning All-Ireland champions, but there was definitely a lot of good in what we did, and I think both will have kind of gleaned a couple of things from it, and I'd be surprised if some elements of what you saw last Saturday night are not still present when you go to that championship game, because they were just the Keane Lynch thing was definitely really interesting because they nullified Mark Coleman, and I think Cork's perseverance, so easy to revert to type when things are going wrong, particularly against the best team in the land, and in fairness they persevered, and it was a 50-50 kind of game in the second half, and as I said, those goal scoring chances are the big thing for Cork. If they can hit 4 or 5 goals in a championship game, like they're not going to be beaten. So it's interesting. I think from a Cork point of view, if you're playing Cork, I think there's an element of fear maybe that wasn't there before. There's an element of fear that, oh geez, these guys could overrun us here, because they did overrun Limerick at different stages the other night.
One interesting juxtaposition between the two teams is the amount of goals Cork have scored in the league, Vincent, versus Limerick have only scored 1. I think Cork have scored maybe 16 or something like that. It's a funny one. Like, and even in the championship last year, I think Limerick only scored a goal in one of their championship games against Tipperary. I think they scored 3 that day, but didn't score in the rest of the championship. Not that it ultimately mattered a great deal to them. It's just an interesting thing to note about this Limerick team is that you wouldn't say they're goal averse necessarily, but they're happy to pick off points. And when you're putting up 33 with 20 wides, you're getting a lot of chances.
Yeah, I think they had something like 56 shots in total. Well, if you're going to get in the mid-30s with your point scoring, chances are you're not going to need goals. Now, it's not that they're not trying. Pat Ryan dipped the shoulder a couple of times, tried to get in. The Cork defending was decent in those instances. The worry I would have for Cork is I'm looking at, and a lot was made of it, was a very young Cork team on Saturday night, and it was, and they left a lot of big players out. Still no sign of Seamus Harnedy coming in there. My information is his form is very poor. I think they'll need an in-form Harnedy or a ball winner, certainly on the half-forward line. But I look at the size of these Limerick lads, and you've 2 Leaving Cert students. Colin Coughlin started, got 2 points from wing-back, and then Cathal O'Neill. We've all been looking forward to seeing this Cathal O'Neill. I was down in Salt Hill. He started against Galway. Didn't really go for him. He was taken off. But he came on as a sub on Saturday night. And you look at the size of these guys. They're sitting there Leaving Cert this Wednesday, but they're huge guys. They're 6'2", they're 6'3", but their physical readiness is what strikes me. And this is a Limerick team, bear in mind, Nicky Quaid didn't start. Dan Morrissey was rested. Kyle Hayes was suspended. Who else? Seamus Flanagan was suspended.
Gerard Hegarty.
The hurler of the year, didn't play. And yet they were just going through the motions. I always feel with this Limerick team that sometimes they have another gear if it's needed. And it's that physical deficit. You look at the size of Cathal O'Neill besides, say, Jack O'Connor, who got the 2 goals. I don't know how you bridge that gap. Obviously, what we've seen with Cork in the last few years is they have a way, and they have... they kind of don't go into the collision. They avoid the collision. And that is the style of, they're going for goals, they're running at you. But Limerick, to me, have a group of about 22, 23 players that are just so physically authoritative. And I see a physical deficit there if Cork can't find a way of getting beyond that press. Now, maybe they have a way, and maybe they're just not showing their hand right now. But the thing that struck me was that physical press in the first quarter, particularly, where I think Limerick had 8 wides, but they had 11 scores to 4. They were just so much on top. That's a huge deficit to make up for in the few weeks between now and the Munster semi-final.
definitely one to look out for. And even as you mentioned, having 2 Leaving Cert students able to physically mix it at inter-county level is pretty crazy and a very impressive feat for the 2 lads. And Michael, to maybe move on to Salt Hill, an interesting one. Galway 428, Waterford 323, very high scoring as we touched on earlier. Interestingly, Waterford leading 2-12 to 1-9 after half an hour, but then a 2-4 blitz before the break kind of put Galway on the road to victory. Brendan Cummins today is saying that, Galway, for him, watching them yesterday, they look like really serious All-Ireland challengers. Like, we've kind of discussed it before, but are they the next best placed team to challenge Limerick? They got closest in the championship last year.
I think so. And in a player like Brian Kincannon, I think you have one of the most informed players in the country and fastly becoming, one of their most important players. You're looking at, between himself, probably Conor Whelan and Joe Canning, like there's 3 guys from, we'll say 8 upwards that are just can really, really light it up on a given day. It was actually funny with Joe Canning yesterday. It was quiet at midfield, picked up a bit of a knock and all of a sudden ended up in a 2-man full forward line and, caused serious damage in there. That's probably something that, a lot of people, I think Cathal Moore was on commentary for TG Catter, and I think he's been calling for a while to put him in full forward and getting back to, I suppose, where he started his county career and where he burst onto the scene with that, was it 2-13, I think it was, against Cork down in Thurles in a qualifier. So they've probably stumbled on something there. They put Conor Whelan out centre forward. I probably said about Mark Coleman not being in the game. Like, Waterford couldn't get Austin Gleeson into the game. I'm not sure if that's something that's going to work for championship. I just think he's so attack minded. He wants to go forward, and I'm not sure if centre back is the best option there. I think they might be better with someone like Iarla Daly who's going to hold the centre back position and give Conor Prunty more kind of safety in the full back line. But from a Galway point of view, you're just looking and seeing there's so many different scores, so physical. Dottie Burke was centre back yesterday, which is an interesting one. Finding that kind of juggling balance between getting him and McInerney in. McInerney was centre back, obviously, in 17. Hasn't played that much there since, apart from, he did play there in 18. Hasn't played that much there in 19, 20 and 21. Wonder are they going to go with Dottie Burke out centre back now as well. But they've definitely got loads of options. Like Adrian Toohey was up wing forward yesterday, having played the first couple of games wing back and was very good. Sean Loftus was out the field, having played a couple of games corner back. They've got a lot of options, and even Evan Nyland coming in. They have these players that can come in and make a big impact off the bench now. So they're definitely, I think they're clear second favourites to Limerick, to be honest.
Yeah, Vince, what's your assessment of Galway? Do you agree with Michael there on where they are in the pecking order?
I would. I was in Salt Hill today. They beat Limerick, and the one thing they did, which very few teams can do, is they went shoulder to shoulder. They went man on man, and they have that physical presence. It's interesting. I was listening to James Scahill on the radio, and he's looking at it from a goalkeeping perspective. And I would have thought their use of Joe Canning in midfield was largely to just get Canning back into running. Get action into the legs. I wasn't sure it was ever really a long-term plan. He has room out there. He can dictate a lot of the play. But Scahill was saying that he would always have Canning on the edge of the square. He would always have TJ Reid on the edge of the square, as he would always have Shamie Callan on the edge of the square, because they carry such a threat. Now, I'm not sure that Shane O'Neill will go with Canning on the edge of the square, because I'm not sure Canning wants to be on the edge of the square. To me, the perfect role for Joe Canning is that floating role on the 40 where he can go where he likes, where he can play the quarterback. Like what we saw with Cian O'Neill on Saturday night, this ability to just float around, go to the spaces where you think the ball is going to be. I thought O'Neill in the first half on Saturday night gave an absolute exhibition of that kind of floating role. I think that's the role that Canning likes. But definitely you see it inside, in that inside line. He brought a new dimension to it when he went in there yesterday. And that little flick for Concannon's second goal, he's a huge threat. But I think the real positive for Galway is the form of Concannon, like Michael says. Conor Whelan continues to be outstanding. I think he got 6 points from play yesterday. And Canning. Canning has improved incrementally with every performance this year. I think they're looking like a serious possibility this year.
Yeah, and 2-2 for Brian Concannon, and as you say, 6 points from Conor Whelan, massive contributions from play. And from a Waterford perspective, Michael, you mentioned it earlier, you don't think they will be so open, or their defence would part like that. But to concede 4 goals to Galway, they conceded I think 5 in the opening day against Cork. Now only did concede 1 goal in their other 2 matches across the 2 of them, so it wasn't in every game. But we're still worrying with the championship around the corner.
No, definitely, yeah. Like the day against Cork, it was like a landing strip down the centre of the defence, and it was kind of similar yesterday. I just don't think Austin Gleeson is best served there. I just think he offers so much up front. Like against Cork, he was like easily their best player. He had 5 from play that day. He's attack minded. He's not as a centre back. Like look at Declan Hannon. He's defence first. You know. You have to be sitting back on that 45. You have to be protecting. It mightn't look like you're doing a lot at different stages, but you're just filling an area where a team cannot go into. They're not going to put ball in around it. You're not going to be exposed as a result. And I just think Gleeson wants to bomb forward, and I think they should let him bomb forward, either from midfield or probably from the half-hour line. But Waterford are going to have to sort out what they're going to do at number 6. They're playing Tip the next day. Interesting that like they're likely to meet in championship in a month or 5 weeks time. Like, will they be going with what they expect to have for the first round against Clare? I'm not so sure, but they definitely need to sort out things there, particularly at number 6. Like you had Caleb Lyons at wing back yesterday, who had 5 points from play. I think he scored 218 from play. I see Tomas McCarthy, the Waterford journalist, had it yesterday. Since Liam Catlett has taken over, he scored 218 from play, which is absolutely phenomenal. But they might need to curb their attacking instincts a small bit to keep things a bit tighter at the back. Like you concede 3 or 4 goals in a championship game. Simple, you're not going to win any of those games. So they're going to have to try and have what they hold before they go really rampaging forward, I'd say.
Yeah, Vincent, Michael makes an interesting point about Austin Gleeson, a player that we've discussed over the last number of years his best position, and even you mentioned Brendan Cummins' piece today. He focused a lot about Austin Gleeson and his role at number 6 and whether it's the right fit. What's your view on that? He has so much talent; he could probably play pretty much any position he wanted to. But what is the best position, do you think, for him?
I think the problem with centre back, and look, Austin Gleeson won All Ireland at centre back at minor level. The problem is, Austin Gleeson hurls on instinct, and as Michael says, he wants to go forward, and he has got himself into great shape, and he's a real freewheeling scorer when he's out around the half forward line. But if you are actually putting him in centre back, I was watching, for example, Hugh Lawler, normally a fullback, played centre back for Kilkenny yesterday, and he didn't know whether to come or go. Ross King came out to the 40 for Laois, and Lawler was really uncomfortable because it's his instincts were as a fullback. Very different instincts needed at centre back. But you're now asking Austin Gleeson. I remember Derek McGrath trying to give him a few different responsibilities as a wing forward in terms of opposition puckouts. Austin Gleeson doesn't want to have a prescriptive role in any way, in my opinion. He wants to be able to go where he feels the ball is going to land. You can't do that as a centre back in the modern game. You've got to hold that line. And I think it's good for Waterford. They're finding this out early. They've got that game against Tip. I'd be surprised if Austin plays number 6 against Tip in the final round. I think Iarla Daly is probably a much more conventional choice if they go there. But the big problem for Waterford is Tadhg de Búrca is missing. And without Tadhg de Búrca, there's a huge hole in that defence that needs to be filled. They've got Conor Prunty, who's really developing into a top-class number 3, but he needs a sitting number 6 in front of him to protect him. And I think that'll be the priority with Liam Cahill this week. Who is he going to put in that role? Because I very much doubt come championship that Austin will be a number 6.
Just on that, Will, as well, they are getting a lot right up the far end of the pitch. Like Shane Bennett got a brilliant goal. I haven't seen a drop puck, I think, since Joe Erity got a goal in the 98 All-Ireland final, I'd say. And like he's coming back to form. He needed to get more minutes under his belt. Stephen Bennett hasn't probably hit the heights of last year, but he's getting there, and it's great to see 3 brothers, obviously, from like Ballysaggert's a tiny club, all 3 of them playing in the one kind of forward line. And Jack Prendergast was brilliant yesterday as well. They didn't start Jack Fagan. I think at the other end of the pitch, throw Austin Gleeson up the other end of the pitch as well, you've got a serious attacking threat. It's all about just kind of, to be honest, it's just all about plugging that hole at centre back. And as Vinnie said, centre back is probably the most difficult position to play in modern hurling. It's not like, you know, Brian Corkin or Hubert Rigney or one of these boys back in the day where you just put ball down on top of the centre back and you fetch ball. It's so tactically minded, and I think they'd probably be better served with maybe Iarla Daly at centre back and let Austin Gleeson do what he does up the pitch.
Yeah, one of the bigs for Liam Cal for sure going forward. Just to wrap things up then, Vincent, Kilkenny now assured of top spot in their division, as you mentioned. We don't know if there'll be a league final depending on who plays who in the championship later on, but I suppose they haven't been particularly flashy. But then another kind of check mark for Brian Cody. We were talking at the start of the campaign how while there's a lot of murmurings in Kilkenny, he's actually, you know, doing a pretty good job results wise. Top spot in the division. You can't ask for more than that.
No, well, I've been very impressed with Kilkenny. I was particularly impressed with them last week against Wexford. I thought the way they varied their play, you know, this old kind of cliche about Kilkenny, they don't do tactics under Cody. My God, they're very tactical at the moment, and they're in great shape. Mickey Comerford has got that team into great physical shape. Still no sign of Richie Hogan or Wally Walsh or these lads coming back. I think Billy Ryan has kicked on. He only scored a point yesterday, and he was blocked down for about 3 of them. But he really looks a confident player now, and I think Billy Ryan will be a big player for Kilkenny in this championship. Obviously, TJ wasn't involved yesterday. Adrian Mullen, their captain, signs that he's coming back to form now after that bad injury. I like the look of Kilkenny. I think Cody is trying different things. They've kind of topped their group with a round to spare at their ease, I would say. And, you know, they're probably going to play Wexford in a Leinster semi-final right now. You'd have to say they look in better shape than Davy Fitz's Wexford at the moment. Now, when they played Wexford, Davy Fitz was trying all manner of different things. Liam McGovern is a sweeper. He's not a sweeper. He never wants to be a sweeper. So it's very hard to know what to make of that game in Nolan Park. But right now, Kilkenny are in a very good place. And, you know, if you're talking about Limerick and Galway being the pace setters, right now, I'd probably have Kilkenny at number 3. I think they're in good place.
Yeah, Michael, what's your view on them? Like at the start of the league, I think, as we said, we thought Brian Cody had done a good job, and that maybe some of the criticism. I know John Milan was very strong, saying that he thought it was unfair. You know, where are they in the shake-up at the moment, do you think?
Well, they're definitely modernising, as Vinnie says there. They're definitely mixing the short and the long, and if anything, there's probably more short than long now, and we would have known them as, you know, a win-your-own ball, get the ball in there and you have to win it. But they're definitely playing through the lines an awful lot more. They're definitely playing with their heads up an awful lot more now too. I still would question whether the quality is there maybe to win an All-Ireland outside of, as John Milan had it in his column a couple of weeks ago, maybe outside of Owen Murphy and maybe Pádraig Walsh and TJ Reid. And I'm not sure if, you know, they'd have many more, would say, that would make the best 15 in the country. But in those 3, if those 3 are playing well, they're never going to be too far away. And Owen Cody, Billy Ryan, Conor Brown even as well, they're all getting more time. They're all looking an awful lot more solid. And as Vinnie said, they were kind of blown away physically a bit by Waterford last year in the All-Ireland semi-final. They've obviously done a big block of work. They're never going to be far away. You know exactly what you're going to get from them every day. There's going to be an unbelievably honest effort. Is the quality there to win an All-Ireland? I'm not so sure. Could they take out someone that would see themselves as big All-Ireland contenders? Yes, they definitely could.
Yeah, only one round of the Alliance Hurling need to go, but the storylines are shaping up nicely ahead of the championship as well. Vincent, thanks so much for joining us.
Pleasure, Will.
Well, it's now time to turn our attention towards Offaly Hurling here in the Throw-In podcast in association with Alliance, and we're delighted to be joined by Offaly chairman and double All-Ireland winner with the county as well, Michael Digdon. Michael, how are you?
I'm good, Will. Thanks very much.
No, great to have you on. I suppose it's a good time to have you on as well. Offaly going so well. You're back in Division 1, and I know your son himself on the score sheet yesterday with a goal. Me and Michael Verney were talking before you came on air. We don't know if there's ever been a quicker goal in the Alliance League. So all things going well for Offaly at the moment.
Yeah, look, Michael texted me on, I think it was on Saturday, to see would it come on this morning. And I said to myself, if we win on Sunday, I'll come on, because it could have been an awful different conversation this morning otherwise. But look, I suppose Michael would know this, having played with the county. I suppose we've gone through a very, very tough time over the last, I suppose, the guts of 20 years nearly now. Certainly the last 15, I suppose, where things have really gone backwards, and I suppose you had to stop the slide somewhere. So you'd be delighted starting out in the league. When you go back to the great days of playing, and you're looking at some of the teams you're playing, you should be winning those games easily. But that's not the reality. The reality is we were in the Christy Ring last year, we couldn't win it. The third tier of hurling, and you're looking at the league matches and you're saying we're up against it here. But the change in the players, I think Michael Fennelly has done a fantastic job. But last year he came in for his first year and COVID hit, and I think any manager anywhere in the country that was on his first year, it was very hard for them. Because they didn't know the players and they had no chance with them, and they were locked down straight away. And I think after the Christy Ring, everyone had a good look at themselves, and the work that the lads have done on their own since, there was no collective training, obviously, but the work that the players put in since last December has been massive. And you can see that, I think, in their fitness levels, in their physique. They're very young, they're very ambitious. And Michael Fennelly obviously has a massive pedigree as a player and as a person. Johnny Kiely as a coach, and they've got a chance now over the last 8 or 10 weeks, or whatever they went back, to put their stamp on it. But to have a very eager group willing to learn, and it's been great. I think the bit with our footballers as well. I think it's the way we're playing as well is important for Offaly people. We like a bit of style and to play the game in a certain way, and that's there as well. So a long way of answering your question. But we're delighted. It was a huge day for us yesterday, and next year bring different challenges. Obviously, back whether we're welcoming Tipperary or Limerick or Kilkenny or Waterford or Galway, whoever it is, to Offaly next year. But isn't it fantastic for us as hurling people in Offaly who love their game, and we will really look forward to that. And that'll bring different challenges. And it'll take a while for lads to get used to that level of play, but I think that will come. I think we have a lot of good young players coming after them, and we saw 5 or 6 subs, 7 subs coming on yesterday, and everyone of them put their hand up and played well when they came on. So good, and you have to enjoy this. There's a lot of tough days when you're involved in the GAA, whether it's a player or administrator or anything else. And so when you get days like yesterday, when you see the progress the lads have made, you really have to enjoy it. So it's been super.
Yeah, Verney, how important is it for the county to be back at the top table in Division 1 and mixing yourselves against the top tier teams? Obviously, you'll hopefully go up, I'm sure, in the Christy Ring Cup later in the year as well to get into the championship bracket as well. But for the moment, how big will it be next year being able to test yourselves against the best?
Asher, it's massive. I was only chatting to the captain, Ben Keneally, after the match yesterday, and he was just saying a lot of the younger guys haven't played, the Tips or the Kilkennys or any of these guys. They've been playing maybe the Kildares and the Downs in recent years since it came on the panel. So there's nothing like that experience. And Michael probably knows this better than anyone. Will there be a couple of maybe chasing experiences along the way? Yeah, there probably will be, but you have to experience that to realise, I suppose, the level. That's the level that they aspire to. They aspire to get up to that Liam McCarthy level and be really, really competitive again. It will be tough, don't get me wrong. And if you look at Westmeath, you'll probably see how tough it could potentially be. But we're kind of really on the crest of a wave. It's hard to put your finger on, and even chatting to Michael Fennelly, he finds it hard to put his finger on, what exactly has changed. But an awful lot has changed in 7 months. The performance, the word I'd use to describe their 4 performances in the league so far, they've been unbelievably thorough. Just seriously thorough, putting up big scores, really clinical. They've averaged, I think it's 34.75 points per game this year, 12 goals in 4 games. They put a huge score against the Kerry outfit that have, gotten the better of us in recent years. Down obviously beat us in penalty shootout last year in the Christy Ring semi-final. That was a big setback. Yesterday started well, and most importantly, we're able to keep the foot to the floor and, really, really clinical, not allowing teams back into games. I think they were 8 up at the water break, 12 up at half time. I think they were 15 up at the second water break, and then, win the game by 18. They're doing exactly what you would want them to do. And I think from an Offaly supporter's point of view, there's been so much worry and heartache in recent years just to see how clinical they were yesterday and how clinical they've been the whole way through. It's brilliant. Michael Fennelly said the one thing he said, the only thing if he was putting his finger on it, he said he thinks the players are a lot more selfless maybe than they were the year before. They will always give the ball to the man in the right position. And a classic example of that yesterday, I think it was the 4th goal. Oisin Kelly was soloing through, and Liam Langton, who was on his blind side, I don't even know how he saw him, and he just gave a lovely deft little hand pass across to the man in the better position, and that was a goal. And it was brilliant. I said we've had an awful lot of harrowing days, and days with, asking what's gone wrong with Offaly hurling, and have we hit rock bottom yet, and is there going to be another rock bottom? So it's great to have things turned around, and like, no matter what way you look at it, we're in the top 12 hurling teams in the league for next year, and that's a huge progress before we even get to the summer.
Yeah, and as you say, in terms of the rootless nature of the wins, like 4 victories by 16, 21, 11 and 18, which is mightily impressive. And Michael, I'd be interested to know, I suppose your own story, going in as chairman in Offaly, like, what was for you the big challenge taking on that job? What were the things you were looking to identify to try to get the county back up competing with the best?
I don't know if you have the rest of the day to talk about that, but look, I suppose it was a frustration. I suppose, like, I never had any real intent or interest, or never saw myself being in an administrative position like this. I got involved with the club here in Ballymere in 2010. I became chairman of the minor club, and that was nearly by accident as well. And so we built a club with about 110 kids in the club. That time, maybe 7 or 8 coaches, and I think we have 460 or 70 and 60 coaches now, all level 1, Garda vetted, child protection courses, everything, very well run club. And it was, I suppose I was just saying, if you could mirror that across the county, and there's probably three areas that I'd say our whole coaching and games culture, that encompasses an awful lot. That encompasses, the coaching in our clubs, the schools, what's happening in our schools. What has been our strength, I think, over the years was we have a small enough group of people. Sometimes if you have too many players, I think it can be an issue as well. But we always had a few schools, and we had our clubs going well, and we seem to have lost that. We'd gone backwards all over the place. So it's about just stabilising, getting our clubs going, getting our clubs working. So club development would have been huge, and we're working away on that, and clubs are buying in, and we have nurseries starting there this year all over the county, and basic stuff in ways, but still stuff that needs to be done. The whole GPO, we had no GPOs in the county, and we've only a couple still, but we have 14 clubs out there have applied now, and we're looking at that whole model, our whole coaching and games model. Financial stability, I think, was fierce important. It was kind of hoping for the best, I think, every year. Like, you need that sort of structure around sponsorship and fundraising, and we had a very difficult year with COVID. We lost 270 grand last year. With that last year now, and I think going into next year, we'll be in a good position. I think the Faithful Fields is a massive addition to us, where we train, and all the lads are going in there. Like, every night that place is full now. We've 4 minor teams training at the minute. Last year's 2 teams in Leinster finals, and this year's teams with the 20s. Corrigan ladies football use the facility, and it's just doing the simple things well and making sure everybody is happy and looked after, and and that bit of ambition is there, and enjoyment. I say that to everybody that I meet. Like, we're supposed to enjoy this. This is a voluntary thing. There's supposed to be a smile on your face here. This is not supposed to be the end of the world. Every day, and it's just getting, I suppose, I would say what Michael said there about the players, or about the change. What I would say the change, if I was looking for Michael Fennell earlier on to have a chat, I didn't get him yet. The biggest, like, the panel has changed completely. There's a lot of lads that have given great service to Offaly, that had been around the panel for a while, and they stepped away, or they were let go, or whatever, and we had to go with the youth. I think 10 of yesterday's team are 23 or under. Killian Sampson's 19, Brian is 20, Ross Ravenhill and Burkey, all the lads there, 21. Even Ben Keneally is only 23. Like, people forget he's around so long. So I think, and the physical development of those lads in a short space of time has been massive. Now, there's still an awful long way to go. But it's the same with the football. There just seems to be a great spirit on the ground. John Mahan rang last night. He'd been on to Michael. He was so excited to see the hurlers. Everybody is buying into it, and obviously Shane Lowry coming on board, and he was texting me last night. He texts me every Sunday after the matches, so it's I think that's given everyone a lift as well, to have that partnership. So it's just all those little bits and pieces, and I would have always said I had no problem with, like, people gave their lives to Offaly GAA and did a lot in terms of time and effort, and I will ever do, I suppose, in this role. But I just felt we weren't doing things the way we should be doing them, and we had to change a lot of stuff. And there is a lot of change going on, and we've used the COVID time, I think, really well. People don't know about everything, because they know what's going on. This is all nitty gritty stuff that needs to be done. So it's all happening quietly. there's a very hard working management group there in the county board, very efficient, just they're getting on with it, they're enjoying it. So look, it's all of that, and I think the players then feed off that. They just have to go and train and play and enjoy themselves, and that's it. It's keep it simple and it's going well.
Michael, have you been overawed at any stage with the level of commitment and work involved at board level? Donncha Boyle, my colleague in Independent, was chatting to Colin Cummins a while back, and other various volunteers. It is a serious undertaking.
Yeah, I suppose, Michael, what I'd say is, I think people probably maybe thought I didn't think about it. I knew that I run my own business, and I suppose there's some days I don't run it. You don't even get to it. That's the truth. But Colin Cummins is a phenomenal guy, the secretary. He's just come in this year. Derval Dolan, who's the treasurer, is a chartered accountant. Colin is a strategic planner in DSB. Busy jobs, but have a huge passion, and not just picking out them. If you take James Murphy and Christy Todd that run our CCC, like the efficiency of that and the way they operate, and even the Sinead Daly came in. Karina Carroll is our chair of Cushion and Og, and she's talk about working. Like, she's the secretary of Ballinamer GAA. She runs the underage over there. She's chair of Cushion and Og. I don't actually know how she does it, right? So those people, I think, there's a huge amount of delegation. I'm finding probably now that I'm not as much involved in some of the stuff I was in the first year, that I'm able to stand back. My biggest focus is to keep my eye on hurling and football. That's, I think, what happens with a lot of county boards. You get so caught up in the day-to-day operation side of it. It's massive. So what I try to stay above that. Look at deal with the management teams, the players. Like, I would have a fair handle on every hurler Offaly from a certain age, from probably 15 or 16 up to 34 or 5, and not afraid, maybe able to talk to Johnny and Michael about players now, which I couldn't last year, really, going into the job in the first time. But you're able to have a chat now with the lads and about all that sort of stuff, and making sure that everything that they need has been provided. And I have to say one thing here about John Mahan and Michael Fennelly. We've come out of COVID, and their backroom teams. The boys have been working in the background. This work that goes on in inter-county GAA is huge, and they're back training now for ever long. There's not one person that looked for penny expenses, look for anything for this year. They're just heads down working. They know the financial situation we're in. Everybody is just shoulder to the wheel, and they will get their expenses. They will get sorted, and we are sorting out all that. But there's nobody looking for a thing. It's just get down, do the work, and get on with it. And we're fierce lucky to have, like, Michael Fennelly and John Mahan are two hugely impressive people, and we're very, very lucky to have them in Offaly, and the backroom teams. And Johnny Kiely in the hurling, we're talking about hurling this morning, is a fantastic coach. But to see the passion he has for Offaly, to see the fire in his eyes, that's what it's all about. And I think we had lost a lot of that. We were going through the motions, but there's no one going through the motions anymore. These people are very, very ambitious. They're winners, and I don't know where we're going to go. There's nobody making wild predictions. We have an awful long way to go, but I think our players deserve that. The least they deserve is to create that environment where they have a chance to be successful. I said that to John Mahan 4 or 5 weeks ago. I'd love a lad to finish up at 32 or 3 or whatever age and say that was the best 15 years of my life in that Offaly jersey, and that's what I had when I was playing. That'll never be replicated. No matter what happens in my life, that's the best.
And Michael, how important was the Shane Lowry's contribution? It's not only, I suppose, great to have someone like that, a well-known person who's so popular, involved, and really interested in the county, but even just the financial element of it. Like, how vital is it to get a contribution like that?
Yeah, look, delighted with that end of it, but it's way more than that. It's to have it's the genuineness of that man and the interest that he has, and like to go out and do. I think maybe sometimes you're looking at it, you maybe don't realise how difficult on the world stage. There's so many. If you go down to your own club, I'm going out to play golf with Joe Dooley and Dahi Regan after a while, and that won't be pretty now. I can guarantee you that. But how hard a game it is, like, and this man is there last night, tied 6th again in the Memorial, and the genuine passion that he has. And I was talking about this, and this is very good for him as well. And I was talking to Brendan, his dad, last Monday week, and I was saying, Shane texted me at 4 o'clock after I was coming back from Carlow, after beating Carlow, and he was teeing off at 5 o'clock in the PGA, like in a major, an hour later, and he's looking up the Offaly results, and he had been on to me, we'd beaten Tipperary the day before in the football. And Brendan made a great point to me. He said it was no coincidence, he said, that Shane played so well over the weekend. He said the lift he would have got from the footballers winning Saturday and you winning today, he said it's brilliant for him as well. And that's the way it is. We called it, we didn't know what to call it. We didn't know what to put on. So we called it a partnership. And that's exactly what it is. And he texted me there, he said, I'm coming home on such a day. Would it be okay if I went out to maybe watch the lads train or something like that? And he's so happy to be involved. And it's something I think that will grow, because like we don't really know what we're going to do with it. There's going to be a couple of events a year, maybe something overseas, something at home. And and most of the money will be geared towards our coaching and games plan in terms of our GPOs and trying to help the clubs. It's a big commitment for, it's 20 grand for a club or a combination of clubs for a GPO, which is a lot of money for a lot of our smaller clubs. So we'd love if we could, like we also contribute maybe 7,000 or 8,000, and then Leinster pick up the tab for the rest. But we'd probably like to be able to maybe help the clubs a little bit more with their side of things. If we could, maybe, down the road, if we could have maybe 100 grand a year there to feed into that pool for our GPOs. So that's what we're looking at there, and that's where Shane is obviously focusing on. But he's great. He's a great guy. He's such a sound fella, and he probably captures the Offaly spirit. I suppose his background with his dad and his uncles. They've been great footballers, but he has that charisma and that bit of class and just down to earth, nice fella. And I suppose, maybe in the 70s, 80s, 90s when Offaly were going well, that was a lot of what Offaly was about. So I think it ties in really well.
Yeah, Verney, like it is such a big boost for the county. As we mentioned, the finances is one thing, but the kind of intangible boost you get from having someone like Shane Lowry so committed to the cause, as Michael said, texting him before a final round of a major championship, it shows his passion for the game, and it must give everyone in the county a boost who's involved in GAA.
Yeah, no. When I saw that coming through, the partnership, you're just thinking things are starting to go well on the pitch, and nearly more importantly, things are going well off the pitch. Because if things are going well off the pitch, that generally will transfer over, and it's just a really good enthusiasm and everything around the county now. As I said to you a few weeks ago, the hurlers footballers both won, the ladies footballers won, the camogie team won, and Lowry was fifth in a major. Like, there's a lot of things kind of snowballing at the moment. Michael has briefly mentioned it there. If the footballers can get promotion to Division 2, that would be absolutely huge. They face a tough task, obviously, against the weekend against Fermanagh. But yeah, no, it's funny. A word Ben Kiely said to me yesterday was about how things snowballed when they were going badly. And all of a sudden, it gathers pace and things just get worse than maybe you could have ever considered. And all of a sudden now, I'm kind of thinking that it's snowballing the other way, and things are going really well on all fronts, really. And yeah, hopefully we can keep it going. It'd be massive to get promotion at the weekend, but just the energy around the county, the energy was sapped out of people probably over the last 4 or 5 years, but everyone's kind of on a bit of a high. And like I can't wait till particularly Offaly supporters can get back into matches now, because they've been following on, Offaly GAA TV and GAA Go and that in recent months, and people are just mad to get back out. We're hurling Rhinus tonight in a league game. There could be 100 people there. I'd say if they could hold 1,000 or 2,000, they probably would at this stage, because people are just mad to get back to games. But yeah, there's a great energy and enthusiasm around, and it's great to be talking about things in such a positive light again.
Yeah, Michael, this was the last question before we let you go, and thanks for giving us some of your time this morning. So I know you said there's no one making big predictions going forward, but I suppose what do you hope is the outcome now of your time involved in the county now? Like, as Michael said, football and hurling are going well at the moment. Are you dreaming a bit of what the possibilities could be?
Well, I'd be wasting my time, and we'd all be wasting our time if we didn't think we could win All Irelands again. That's the way I think. I might be a bit mad, but if you don't have that ambition, I heard a chairman some years ago saying that we'd never see that again. I couldn't believe it. I heard him comment at a function saying that we had overachieved over the years, considering our population and our resources, whatever. I don't believe that. You get, it's kind of been the Offaly way. We won a minor All Ireland in '86. I was on the team, the first Leinster we ever won. We won the All Ireland. There was 12 lads from 2 clubs. There were 7 from Borough and 5 from Rhinus, making up the first 15. I'm living on a little road here out in the middle of nowhere, and Ryan is here in this house. Ross Ravenhill is 100 yards up the road, and Kieran Brooks 100 yards further up the road, nearly in Kilbeggan, if you like. And we're that far over, Michael. You'll know what I'm talking about there. From the other end of the county, where I would have grown up in Bannerhan. So I do believe, and I believe in sport. Anything is possible if you have that ambition, you have the confidence, and and I was out in the Fairfield Fields last Friday night, and I was kind of standing this year's minors or last year's minors, the 2020 minors hurlers were training, and I was watching their match for about 20 minutes, and then this year's minors then had a trial match. There was 30 of them, and the under 20s were training down below. There was another 30 odd, and the seniors were training, and the hurling was serious. The passion of the minors that were trying to get on the panel for this year's team, and 60 odd lads were asked in for trials on the hurling and football minor teams, and everyone came, and that wasn't always the way either, and they're all mad to go, and it's just. So I suppose that what I want first of all, I suppose, is you want to get that little bit of pride back in the jersey, which I think the lads are doing now. Michael mentioned the football. Like this week, during the week, I couldn't sleep during the week thinking about the match at the weekend. I said, this is so big. And then I'm looking following week playing to get up to Division 2 in football and to be in Division 1 hurling would be massive. And it's positive pressure. That's what I would call it. Because if you don't win it, you're back to square one. Like you can dress it up any way you want it. But at the end of the day, it's what happens on the field is what's important. It's not any the other stuff has to happen and will happen, and we will follow through on our plans. But it's what happens on the field is what people it gives them the lift that they're interested in. So we're stabilising at the minute, and like I would be hoping over the next few years that we get really competitive again. And it will take a couple of years. There's no point saying it won't. And Michael said it. We don't. You see Westmeath and Laois, and but then you see Antrim and what they're doing. And like we were 6 up against Antrim last year in the league, well into injury time. And the way they're playing, and what Darren has done there. So I think there's cycles in sport. Like sometimes a team is on the way up, and there's other teams on the way down. And I would say some of the teams that are around there for a bit, haven't made the breakthrough, might be on a bit of a slide now. So we have to try to get up the ladder. So look, I'd be hoping these things will take 10 years, it'll take 20 years. I don't believe that. I think things can change very, very quickly within a couple of years. So I'm hoping within 2 or 3 years that we are going to be really competitive as a county again.
It's certainly been one of the major success stories of the year so far in both football and hurling. I'd like to thank both Michaels for joining me on this week's episode of the Throw-In Podcast in association with Allianz. We'll be back next week with another show. In the meantime, you can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, or listen on independent.ie. So until next week, thanks for listening and goodbye.
Allianz, supporting all 32 counties through the Allianz Leagues.